Nerds Talking, the podcast.
Yo, we talk about lightsabers, stunning your TV screens, what you want to stream, everything beyond your dreams. Want to talk about movies, sports, or even politics? Go ahead and tune into us. We'll give you all of it. Whatever you're debating, Xbox or PlayStation, Marvel or DC, Mac or PC. Teraflops when the movie drops, gigabytes, chips, RAM, no matter what it is, we got all of it. Welcome to the show.
Nerds Talking, the podcast.
Welcome to Nerds Talking, the podcast. I'm here with Johnny, Carlos, Hugh, and our special guest, stand-up comedian Eddie Brill. He's joining us. It's our second show where we've had stand-up comedians. The first one,
not so good.
Didn't go so well. It's as if we booked stand-ups for a funeral. It went terribly. And they just were not funny. I just kind of disappointed. And we tried to get them to tell jokes, and they refused. It's like, why would you have stand-up comedians on a show and then brought you on for a reason and you just didn't want to participate? So Eddie, you will participate. We will make you.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what's interesting is that I've done a ton of podcasts, of course, but even before that, for 2 or 3 decades, you go to do a radio show, and the radio DJs don't have anything, so they ask you to do a joke from your act, and it's kind of hard to do your act on the radio or do your act in that way, because comedy is not just it's not just a verbal thing. There are comedy albums that you can listen to, like old comedy albums with George Carlin and stuff, and it's creative, but to do your jokes on stage, it's sometimes hard to do them for the radio. So you just try to be yourself, and hopefully you're a funny person or goofy or whatever.
Yeah.
But I just, just so you know, because a lot of times you'll get, okay, this is Bob and John in the morning, and they have these big crazy voices, and then we have comedian Eddie Brill, so tell us a joke.
Yeah.
There's a thing that I would always say when someone say, tell me a joke, I go, you're good looking. And that's what you'd always say that. And people would pause and then they'd laugh. Well, one time it backfired on me because I was coming back from Ireland and I was exhausted, and I used to smoke in those days, and my luggage was the last piece off, and I just needed a cigarette after 8 hours in the air, and I was, and the custom guy goes, hey, Eddie, tell me, oh, so you're a comedian, it says on the thing, tell me a joke. And I go, you're good looking, and he didn't laugh, and he brought me in the back room, and he emptied every luggage of mine. I bent over to make sure I didn't have any drugs. And oh boy, did I need a cigarette after that.
Was he good looking?
I just think he was as tired as I was and didn't like my attitude.
So give a little snapshot. I know. How many years did you do Letterman? He was the warm-up act for Letterman.
I was there for 17 years, and I was the warm-up for the whole time. And for 11 of the years, I was booked the comedians on the show. And then I had a lot of other things, like I'd go up to the desk in all the commercial breaks and, either hang out there and talk about life with Dave, or come up with ideas for funny things we can do in the next segment. And then I also a few times got to do the announce at the beginning of the show because Alan Coulter was off for another gig or a Jewish holiday. So I got to go from New York, and do that whole, that was a thrill for me. The first time I did it, the director after the show called me. He said, we need you to re-record that opening. I said, why? He said, you sounded like you were 12. You were so excited. I was like, David Letterman. It's like, the music comes up, the band's playing, the audience is applauding, and you do that announcement. It's like, it just was amazing. So I had to re-record it. I did it a few other times, all right, but the first time, hey!
It's a child back there.
Yeah, Merle Haggard. And here he is.
Yeah, so for the listeners, Eddie was the warm-up act before every show on the David Letterman show. It was
the Late Show with David
Letterman. The Late
Letterman.
Show. There you go. It's funny.
Yeah.
I watched it on NBC, CBS, and now
NBC was late night. The late night. It was because they're like corporations. The late night. The Tonight Show is one. Late night is the NBC, and Late Show is the CBS version.
Have you been on any of the shows that are running now?
Not really. It's kind of interesting. I've been doing a lot of producing. I do a lot of stand-up still, But I've done a lot more shows, more like in Europe and when I've gone overseas and stuff like that. But I haven't really done the stand-up shows. I've produced a bunch of stand-up TV stuff and still doing that and working on music and stand-up producing. But I still love the performing more than anything.
What's the biggest difference between the audiences here and over compared to Europe? Are they more like proper like
No, as a matter of fact, they're smarter and cooler and don't put up with bullshit. Like if you go, it's great to be here in London, and like, screw you, But they would be the very first time I went to London to do stand up, I went, it's great to be here in London. And the guy yelled out, bullshit. And I said, and because he knew I was pandering. It's a very American thing for comedians to do. They think, if you just pander, everyone's going to applaud, but not in Europe. They don't want that. So he said, bullshit. And I went, yeah, you're right. It smells like shit. And it smells like, no, it looks like shit and it smells like piss. And the crowd loved it because I got back at the guy and I didn't take that. It made me a better comedian to go overseas. I don't think America sucks. I just think that a lot of comedians here are so into the pandering and love me thing that the great comedians never have been into, Carlin Pryor, Lily Tomlin. It's all about doing what they love. Dave Chappelle, his truth. And there's a lot of comedians, love me, put your hands together for coming to the show. It's like, we don't have to applaud. We've been coming to shows our whole life. We don't need to applaud ourselves for coming out. And they don't, they want the truth. I've always loved British sitcoms and Irish sitcoms and stuff like that because they're very dark and very truthful, and not all have laugh tracks. Some do, you know what I mean? But it's very interesting. They also don't hire everyone is not beautiful on every TV show because they hire the best actors, and because they're not at, America has this odd thing where we have to make everyone pretty and everyone has to be perfect and you can't make any mistakes, and but the best shows are always the darkest, where a lot of vulnerability and insecurity and real life comes across.
What a concept, best actor. Geez, that's what a concept.
Right. Yeah. Best haircut.
That's pretty much what those shows are, really. Yeah. Pat ourselves in the back. And
well, Eddie, I was listening to one podcast you did a couple of years ago, and you said that you toured in Asia, like Hong Kong and whatnot. How are the crowds there as far as understanding the jokes, and just do you have to adjust your set?
It was interesting. I wasn't sure if I had to, so I went without adjusting them, and they worked. Hong Kong was mostly a British place before I went there, and then there was the takeover where the Brits were knocked out. They didn't really have the ownership anymore in Hong Kong, and the crowds were coming out were these Brits who were stuck in Hong Kong. Not only, I mean, there'd be people from Singapore and there'll be people from other countries, but it was mostly English speaking people going to these places because there wasn't a lot of English entertainment for them. Like when I went to Amsterdam, it was the same thing. There's a lot of, the audience. The first time I worked in Paris, it's the same story. A lot of expats, a lot of Ireland, Europe, Australians, Irish. The crowds were mostly expats, and they were dying for English speaking entertainment. Hong Kong was just, it's just a very smart place, and the audience is really, some of the best films in the world are South Korean, Japanese, and films that are made out of Hong Kong. And there's a reason for that, because the intelligence factor is so amazing there. So, when you do creative stuff in Hong Kong, you're playing with the big boys. It's really terrific.
I see.
Good question, Johnny. I mean, your ego just went through the roof. Fantastic.
There was this one guy. No,
Eddie, how was it in Canada? Are they the best people ever? I'm Canadian.
Yeah, well, Canada's great. Canada's fantastic. Canada's come up some of the greatest comedians in the world, Jim Carrey and, the SCTV people and, Martin Short and all that. So there's a lot of good stuff, One of the craziest things that happened is I was working in Los Angeles and I met a guy from Bangladesh, brilliantly smart guy, and he wanted to be a comedian, and him and his wife got pregnant. They they had sex, and a baby was planted, and they decided to raise the baby in a place that wasn't LA, in where they're from, in Bangladesh. So he was missing stand-up. So he put a little thing together and he invited me over, and I got to work in Bangladesh. Now, this was in Bangladesh, there's like 44 million people in the country. It was like 4 million people in Dhaka, their main town. And the 1 percentile of those people spoke English. They traveled the world. They did business. So they all came to my show. And again, I was worried. What do I talk about? Can I talk about religion in front of these folks? Can I talk about, politics, whatever? And I don't talk much politics, but I was wondering if I could. And they were people are human wherever you go. You could quote me on that. The thing about you write, I learned how to write comedy for humans as opposed to writing for the country or writing for, hey, I live near Lafayette Street, it's like, who cares? The truth is like, if you write a joke about having a dream, and you have a nightmare, every human can laugh at that. Doesn't matter which country, but it's about your sincerity and putting the hard work in and not kissing their ass and not bullshitting and not taking them for granted.
So I'm thinking, take a left on
Make
this
a left on
Street.
Serious Street. Isn't that a Steely Dan song?
Yeah. I did
left on, or Dylan.
Go ahead, Hugh. I want to hear it.
Well, no, I'm just thinking, I'm curious what you think about the climate today of comedy, because one of the things I looked at was the guy you mentioned in Ghost. I've forgotten his name, who passed,
Oh, yeah. He was brilliant, and all of a sudden my mind is blank. I can picture his face. And his brother Ray is still doing comedy all these years later, but his name is slipped my mind. But you were going to ask me about him.
Well, I was looking at one of his shows from probably 30 years ago, where he's on stage and he's mimicking a bunch of different characters, different ethnicities, and
Right.
and I was thinking, would he be canceled today? Would he be called out on it? And whether, because I don't know that I think it's good. I mean, I think comedy is meant to be comedy. It's meant to be something that causes people to laugh. Will everybody laugh? No. Some people may not.
Hurt. Comedy,
Right.
Somebody gets hurt. But I mean, if you're just cruel and like homophobic and come from a really hateful place, there's no room for that. And as human
Right.
beings, we should evolve from that. You do stand-up comedy and you tell your truth, and your truth might bum people out. You're going to talk about, stuff that happened in your life that everyone can relate to. They also, a lot of people don't want to hear it. And, we're grown up in a very fear-based society. The teaching in our country, in the world, is very fear-based. And as comedians, it's really great to break that down, because that's a horrible way to teach children and to raise a society. I mean, there's war and there's guns and there's violence, and it's based on, you want to go down Serious Street, there, there's such a negative imagery and a scaring and sins and fear and the devil. And in reality, life is pretty fun, and we're here a very short time, and you can really have a blast if you, have good people around you, do the right thing, and realize that you're just a moron like everybody else, and you're going to make mistakes. And that's what comedy is. Like, I used to have a bit where I lived in Hollywood, Florida for junior high school and high school. And I'm not going to do the bit, but because I probably couldn't remember it word for word, but it was about there was Canadians down there, a lot of Canadians in Florida. They had bought up the beaches smartly. And, and being a hockey fan, I got to meet all my hockey heroes who'd come down to Hollywood, Florida when I was down there, and the girls were lovely. But I would notice that this beach that we would go to was mostly Canadians, and the husbands were short and fat with Speedos, and then the wives were tall and gorgeous in bikinis. And my original joke had to do with, it was about the guys had a lot of money. And that's kind of, it's not horrible. It might be true in some situations, but to put everyone in that category as a gold digger, and that's why, these men were, getting these women. Well, I realized years later, I put that joke to bed. This is 25, 30 years ago. And I thought about it. And I said, you know what the truth is? The truth is I was jealous. That's the bottom line. That's my truth. I was jealous of those men, because and I was the asshole, not the I was the asshole in that scenario. So I rewrote the joke where I said, I wonder how these women get these men, probably because they're nice guys and not judgmental pricks like me. And so you get the laugh by being real and saying, like Kevin Hart, he had some homophobic jokes, and of course they're not great, and they're not smart, and they're childish, and they're wrong, and they put a it's kind of hateful, but he grew up and he evolved, and we should celebrate the fact that he evolved into this guy as opposed to where he was. And instead of punishing him by taking away the Academy Awards like scumbag, fear-based, hateful people, they fired him from the gig, from jokes he made a million years ago when he was younger and didn't evolve into a smarter, better human being.
Right. You left turn on Sirius Street.
Right.
You did good. Eddie, what do you think about the climate of weather?
Yeah,
a little more serious.
Yeah, winds out of the northwest at 15 miles per hour. That's going to be 25 by mid-afternoon. If you're in bed, stay under the covers, because we're listening to the sounds of lightning and thunder
and jazz. Very well. I mean, weather people are the best, because it's like tomorrow's weather. When I wake up, I'll believe me, I'll find out what it is tomorrow. I'll see it.
How about those poor weather people have to cover the storm, like in North Carolina when the hurricane comes, and they're like holding on to the pole and like, the house blew away and the cameraman's dead.
Yeah. And then the best part is back in the studio. Oh, hope you're okay out there. Stay safe. You're like, the guy just flew away.
No, I think he said something more like, meanwhile, the rich prick back in the studio.
Oh, right. That rich prick back in the studio.
It's just, what good old news.
I'll tell you a name story. Here's a true story with a name. And that my father wanted to name me Richard, and my mother wouldn't have it. She's like, we're not letting him be called Dick. It's not going to happen. We're not, you can't do that to him. He's going to have a horrible childhood. So he said, I want you to name him. We're going to name him after my father, Edward. And my father's like, I want Richard. And my mother goes, no, it's not happening. So he says, make the middle name Richard. And she goes, who's Richard? Why? He says, I don't know. I just like the name. She says, okay. So he goes off to work. And there in the hospital, me and my mama were hanging out, and I don't remember any of this, but she told me later. I was just born, and she said they gave her the birth certificate, and she filled out Edward Robert in there, and then gave it to people. 6 weeks later, the thing comes to the house. My father opens up, Edward Robert. My mother goes, those idiots. I told them Edward Richard. So she lied, and she prevented me from becoming a dick. So that worked out.
She should open it up and go, what a bunch of dicks.
Shit. I was going to ask you if De Niro's the only one who's ever mistaken you for Danny Aiello.
No, I think,
that is a good story.
Yeah, that was incredible. Yeah, I got to know Danny very well, and he was just a great guy. But his son, Jamie Aiello, him and I looked a lot alike at one point, a few different occasions. So, but when I got older and haggard, I started looking more like Danny Aiello. But what a good guy, what a funny guy, great to comedians, great to actors. Just a good human being. And I was, he heard that I looked like him and that I met De Niro and that I was, the whole story about, I thought that De Niro gave me one of the best hugs of my life.
That blows me away. That just blows me away.
Yeah. My friends were like, how do you know De Niro? I go, I don't know De Niro. They go, you were having sex with him on the dance floor. Like, he hugged me. I think he thinks I was Danny Aiello. I don't know. I got 3 amazing hugs in my life. One from Oprah Winfrey, not because she wanted to hug me, but she was overcome with emotion. She had done the Letterman show, and there was a big buildup of her doing the show, because every day she was going to do the show, and Dave would write in a book, day 36, no Oprah. Well, she had a play, The Color Purple, opening across the street from our theater. She decided to be on our show, and they had the time of their lives. Her and Dave laughed and told stories, and she was overcome with emotion because she really had a great time, and it was very cool, and her play was opening up, and I'm by the desk. And after she hugs Dave, she looks at me and gives me a hug, and it was so good. It was so amazing, But the best hug of my entire life happens to be the wife of my hero. My hero is Roberto Clemente. And
Oh, wow.
I used to do book reports on him as a kid. I knew everything about him, and eventually got to host the Roberto Clemente Foundation Awards every year. Got to be very close to the family, and his wife, Vera. She called me Iho. She said that I was one of her sons. And after one of the benefits, we raised a whole bunch of money. She hugged me, and it was the best hug of my life.
Wow.
It was pretty amazing. It wasn't sexual, but it was one that I can still feel. And again, I never got to meet Roberto Clemente, but it was really great to be close to his family. It was so surreal to be able to be part of the Clemente Foundation and help raise money for kids in Puerto Rico.
Oh, that's awesome. It's awesome.
All
Yeah, I
right.
mean,
Are you still touring?
I'm starting. I've done 4 or 5 touring gigs. Next weekend I got a couple of gigs on Friday and out of town, and Saturday out of town, and little by little.
And how has COVID affected all of this as far as stand up and touring?
Yeah, well, it stopped comedy stand up for a while, and people are going to the internet and doing Zoom shows, and stand up doesn't work well on Zoom. You're really just performing for like one person at a time. So I would set up these corporate gigs where I'd get this whole company, anywhere from 15 to 250 people. You do stand up on. It wasn't doing stand up. What I do is answer questions like this from people, and also break down jokes and how I write them and all those kind of things. And I had an interview part of it, and that's how that worked. But there were a lot of people who didn't do stand up. They created stuff and sort of shows on the internet during the pandemic, and a lot of those people they get like millions of followers. So, but the problem is it's going to be hard for them to never have done stand up to take what they've done on the internet and do it as a live show without using visuals. And a lot of these people who are getting famous because of the pandemic and being on the internet are now doing shows like John Johnson and Friends. So they put real comedians on with them to fill up the show because they don't have the
Right.
experience. But there are still incredible comedy is still better than ever, and there's great stand-up comics, and it's getting more popular and more popular. As people need to, the harder things get, the more people need to laugh.
Yeah, that is true, especially in the climate, as Hugh puts it.
Yeah, the northwest.
Yeah, that's right. We'll take a break here on Nerds Talking, a podcast. We'll be right back after this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Screen Forum. I am your host, Nathan Wilds, and this is the podcast that offers a fresh perspective on the film and television industry by bringing you compelling conversations with top professionals in all areas of this business. Combining nearly 15 years in the industry, working in all manner of positions, with a network of friends and colleagues within the business, as well as a keen eye for observation, I have amassed a very strong understanding of all the different elements that come together to put a movie or television show on the screen. Combining that with a writer's mentality and a deep passion and understanding for the social and cultural impact that the stories we tell and the people that tell them can have on our lives, I have developed the Screen Forum as a place to hold deep and impactful discussions about the entertainment industry, catering to an audience of both passionate and devoted fans, as well as industry professionals. So come join my listeners, my guests, and myself here in the Screen Forum each month for a discussion that furthers your passion, understanding, and perhaps even your career in the world of film and television.
Welcome back to Nerds Talking, the podcast. Me with Eddie, Hugh, Johnny, Carlos, and I'm Lafayette. Remember to rate, subscribe, download, review, turn on your notifications, tell your friends. Every Friday, new episodes of Nerds Talking, the podcast. Here with Eddie Brill. If you don't know by now, stand-up comedian and a producer. What are you producing? What's something that maybe we've seen?
I'm working on a lot of projects, and one of them is a PBS special for comedy in New York, and we filmed the pilot episode, and it went really, 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 really well. We're very happy. And also I'm working on a project with the film company, and it's all about music. And I'm one of the executive producers, and I'll be writing on the series. And, I have another project that I'm working with called Word Collections, where, like, for instance, Lafayette, if you wrote a song and I sang it and it was on the radio, you would get paid for the writing the song and I would get paid for singing it. Well,
Yep.
in comedy, that's the same way it's supposed to go. You get paid for the writing, get paid for the performance. But all these years, they have not paid the comedians for their writing. And it's a law that they broke. And so we've put together a mighty fine list of, comics, both dead and alive, their estates, like Robin Williams and Richard Pryor and George Carlin and all these folks, Muhammad Ali, and, spoken word stuff. And we're going after these companies to get the people the money that, is owed to them. So, and not just American comics and performers, but comics all over Europe and stuff like that. So, they've been taken advantage of for too long, and we have a huge conglomerate putting this thing together and raising the money. So there's a lot of cool projects I'm doing, and I just today got a script to read to maybe write on it and perform in the film, and I just got it today. I haven't even opened it, so so there's always things coming up. And, there's a club in the city that just opened a couple of blocks from me. I'm going to see if I can have like Eddie Brill and Friends night, once a month there. And so, it's just nonstop. I can't stop.
How do you feel about TikTok? I mean, there's a lot of these people out there making money off of comedians and their bits, and they're not even redoing the bit necessarily. I mean, they're just acting out the bit, they're lip syncing the bit, but it's still the comedian. So how do you feel about that? Because I know they're getting paid because they get all these views.
Million views, yeah.
TikTok?
Yeah. Well, it's a mixed opinion. You should never make money off of other people's stuff unless you give those other people money for using their stuff. I mean, that's just the way it is. You write a piece, it's your baby, and if someone steals your baby, you're going to be very upset. And that's happened to me a lot. I've had a lot of my jokes appear on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and people would listen to what I had to say and then take it on stage, and who's going to say anything about that? That is not rampant, but it does happen too much. It happens once, it's too much. So I'm happy that people are making money on TikTok. I'm happy for people to be successful. But if you're going to do stand-up, do your own stand-up. If you're going to use somebody else's stand-up and lip sync to it, well, pay that person for the right to use their bit.
Yeah, and that's a lot on TikTok. Let's go back to your Letterman days, as you were the booker for the comedians. When you did you go out to the clubs or to scout all the comedians, and did you put yourself on the schedule once a year at least?
Well, I had done the show a bunch of times before I was the booker, so I was on the regular schedule. But I had to get approval from the producers and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't put myself on. I put myself on once in 6 years. I only put myself on once because I felt weird I had to get approved by the show, and the material had to get approved by standards and practices and all that kind of stuff. But Dave wanted me to be on the show. And when I hadn't done it in 6 years, he says, "Why haven't you been on the show?" And I said, "Well, I feel bad. These other comics out there deserve to be on the show." And he goes, "Well, you work here, be on the show," and but some comics are like, "Oh, he booked himself." Of course he booked himself. But if they really knew the truth, they would know that I've only booked myself a couple of times. But as far as finding comics, the best way to find comics is from other comics who tell you, "I worked on the road with this gal and she was hilarious and you have to see her." So, which has happened, on many occasions. Great comics, I remember Bonnie McFarlane and, all these incredible comics that told me, Louis C.K., who got me the job at Letterman. He told me, because I used to be the warm-up at the Dana Carvey show, and Louis was one of the producers. So when he went to write for Letterman asked the staff if they knew any warm-ups, and Louis said, "You got to book Eddie Brill as the warm-up because he rocked it for the Dana Carvey show." So, but these comics would go on the road and tell me who they saw. Now, also, I'm a working comic. So say I did the Denver Comedy Works and I do Wednesday through Saturday normally there. I'd stay there on Sunday, another day, and have them put up 10 of their best local comics so I could watch them and take notes. And so I was out there I was making sure he would send me videos. I'd watch it. I mean, there were thousands of requests, and I had to say no 99.9% of the time. And there are people who hate me because I didn't put them on the show. But if they knew what my job was and how hard it was to, you can't please everybody. When you can only book 0.0001% of the people that want to be on it. You can imagine how many people are angry, and how people have come up to me and said, I always thought you hated me and you didn't. I said, no, I never hated you. You weren't right for the show at the time, or we only had this many spots and you're really funny, or, went to the producers and they said no, and that's the part I would never want to tell anyone, but that happened, that happens. And it's, it's not like the whole point is that, parts of me wish I never booked the show because I would have probably worked more on my own comedy career. But the other part is I really helped a lot of young comedians by doing this job, not only by putting them on the show, but helping them to grow as comedians and but nudging them to take their comedy to a very smart place, one of a kind, unique.
Random question. So
Okay.
I'm watching the Sox last night.
Right.
Wow, this is random. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, and
They
there
were
was
losing to the Twins 5-1 tonight. while I was waiting.
yeah, and Bill Burr was on between innings.
Yes, I saw that.
He's great, and
He made fun of the vitamin water. That's what killed me.
yes,
Because vitamin water is a scam. It's just it's so not refreshing and healthy, and it's full of sodium, and it's as bad as like a diet soda. And
Right.
he looks at it and he holds it up and says, "Oh man, it looks like dirty pool water." And they go, "Yeah, but I hope it's not your sponsor." And they said, "Well, it has electrolytes." And he went, "Are electrolytes real?"
That is a good
as
question.
they're going to. So they asked him a great question, which is why so many, in his opinion, so many great comics come out of New England, and he was, you guys, you at from Emerson, and Dennis from Emerson, and a bunch of other names. And he said I thought his answer was great because there's just a bunch of characters in New England, as he said, who are typically funnier than I am, and they don't even know it.
Right, exactly. Well, we were lucky. It was a great, you can develop a community. Like I mentioned Denver, there's a woman named Wendy Curtis who runs the Comedy Works, and she really develops comics in her area. She focuses on making sure comics have stage time. She is pushing them to do positive things. She gets people like me at the time to come watch these comics. Well, Boston really was a community that was run by the older comics and a few producers. And like Barry Crimmins was this guy who ran this club called the Ding Ho in Cambridge. And every comic who worked on the show, he made sure that you were great, or even if you were starting out, that you had that in you. You had that spark and you worked really hard. And Boston was great, and everyone looked out after each other. And if a comedian stole material, that comedian probably would get his ass kicked.
Yeah, right.
I remember
Right.
there was this kid that I saw in Montreal at a festival, and I thought, wow, this guy's really funny, from Boston, this young comic. And I started thinking about putting him on Letterman, and I got 100,000 phone calls from comics in Boston going, that kid's a thief and he's been stealing material from everybody in town. And luckily I found out and didn't put him on the show.
You remember Joe Rocco? He was booking
very well
Newport comedy for a couple of 3 or 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I did that. I think I did it 2 or 3 times. I used to work there before. When they would have the jazz festival, they'd put a comedy show. Like it would be me and Jon Stewart, or me and Dennis Regan, Brian Regan as well. And we would do these shows at the same time the jazz festival was going. What a great town. But Joe and Mark Rocco went to Emerson.
Yep.
And I knew them both really well. And I've seen Joe used to come by the Letterman show all the time with his wife. He'd get tickets through the networks or whatever, and I'd give them a tour of the building. Just a good guy. That's
Joe-
the thing. You surround yourself with good people. Like Bill Burr, one of the greatest guys. He looks out for other comics. He really tells the truth. When he was a young guy doing stand-up, I just loved his comedy. And but at the time early on, I gave him a piece of advice that I learned from other comics. Everybody sucked but him in his act. It never came back to bite him in the ass. There was no vulnerability. It wasn't compelling. Right. It was like, you suck, fuck you, you suck. And it was hilarious. But like I learned from all these great comics, especially Robert Schimmel and comedians like that, where you have this bravado and it has to come back and bite you in the ass. So I gave Bill that thing. I said, once you start, showing your vulnerability, I'll put you on Letterman. He calls me up like 2 weeks later, says, I got it. I understand what you mean. And we put him on Letterman. Now he's playing Fenway Park. It's phenomenal. I texted with him today. I laughed at that video, and he's so, he's like, like any other performer. It's, what a dream for a kid from New England to be able to play at Fenway Park. I mean, come on. I mean, it's almost like being, a baseball player in Fenway to be able to, Ted Williams and Bill Burr batting third and fourth.
I would call it self-deprecating humor, where you make fun of yourself, which is by far, in my opinion, the best way to go. When you can make fun of you, everybody's laughing with you if you do it well.
Right, because there's two ways to do it. We were sort of talking about this earlier. If you just shit on yourself and you're a piece of shit and I'm no good and that is not good at all. I mean, unless that's your style and you do that style and only do that style, and then everyone laughs because it's a parody of that kind of a person. But when you shit on yourself, it's about being human, about going, look, I think I'm so great, but I'm an idiot like everybody else.
Right.
Because we all think we're superior to what we really are like, and we're all just, I'll speak for myself. I'm just a nerd, just like anybody else.
Nerds talking.
Yeah.
There you go. Good plug right there. Good plug. Johnny, you have anything for me? You're just staring at the screen, probably doing math.
Well, no, I was enjoying the Hugh show. He's taking over.
Whoa, relax.
Are we going to bring up the game again? Are we going to do that again?
Oh, yeah. We have a running joke, Eddie, where Hugh told us the game was the greatest
one of my favorite movies
ever. So every time we review a movie, we compare it to the game, and the game's bar is so low. It's like a midget on his knees.
Oh, wow.
It just can't get any lower.
No,
it's pretty low. Yeah. And so Hugh loves the game. Have you seen the game, Eddie?
I saw that one. That's a pretty great movie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you.
I would say obviously it's not
East?
in my top 10 because I didn't remember it right away.
Eddie, during the break, you had mentioned Celine Dion was not the best.
It was really weird. Again, it's not fun to talk about people who are not, behind their back or are not here to defend themselves. But, I would say that when we were at the show, she made everyone uncomfortable. She fought with her husband in front of everybody. She was, she wasn't that nice. And because she wasn't that nice, I believe that's why she was only on the show one time. Because everyone was nice to, the Letterman show was really great to the guests. I mean, that was that was the call to arms. Like the one thing that Dave wanted everyone to be was great to the guests, and all their whims, all their cares, and everyone loved to come to our show. I mean, they really loved. There would be a lot of people, sports and actors, who would come to the green room just to hang out because it was a great place to come. And if anyone treated anyone badly, like a guest, or treated one of the producers or a cameraman or a person who sweeps up, if you weren't good to them, you wouldn't come back. I didn't make any decisions as far as she was concerned, but she was really not that nice. She could have been having a bad day, but in my opinion, from my eyes, from where I saw her, she wasn't my favorite. But also it's an interesting thing. Like, I think of singers, precious feelings for singers. My family, a lot of singers. My sister was an incredible singer. And, Celine Dion has an amazing voice. It's beautiful, but it's like paint by numbers, and it's like every note is right, but then you hear somebody like Aretha Franklin, and then it's real, and it's, Nina Simone, and it's just like, heart wrenching. That's the kind of singing I like. And to me, Celine Dion is, very good, but paint by numbers. So in advance, I didn't love her. So maybe she was sweet and I just hated her.
On the other end of the spectrum, can you think of maybe one or two people that appeared on the show and then their career took off because of it or from that show?
So many bands, like I mean, a lot of them will say that Matchbox 24 and all those 20, or I forgot, Matchbox 20.
20, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the later group. 4 bands later. No, Matchbox 20, like the Foo Fighters and all these bands, they'd come on the show when they were younger, and they would do really well on Letterman and sell millions and millions of albums, and their break would happen. I mean, there's a lot of comedians have done well from being on Letterman, but it wasn't it was more toward the time of Johnny Carson when comedians did well, because Johnny Carson was the only show on that people watched at that hour.
Right.
When I was working at at Letterman, there was Leno, there was Conan, there was Jon Stewart and Daily Show, and there's there were like late night shows with different other performers, and so it wasn't one show. We would get like 5 million people to watch the show, whereas opposed to Johnny had like 20 and 30 and 40 million people watching. So it was different, to be a comedian on those shows. Like Drew Carey does his set, the next day he has a manager and a tour set up. It happened for the Letterman comics, but not like it did in the old days before that. Too many choices for people to watch.
I see.
Did you meet Johnny?
I never did, but I ran a festival in his honor. I met his whole family, again, like Clemente, another hero that I never got to meet. And but I saw him in real life because I was the warm-up for Saved by the Bell for a very short time, and that was literally across the hall from the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. So he'd walk out in the hallway and I'd see him, but he's running around and running from place to place.
Oh, now we have so many more questions. So you've met Zach Morris?
Yes.
That's I'm over.
Here we go.
I met them all. When they were really
Mr.
young. I was
Belding.
there really early on, 1987 or something like that.
I mean, let's get to the controversy. We all know the whole Will Smith thing and Chris Rock,
right?
But you probably, and I assume you've already talked about that on other outlets, so we don't want to necessarily go there.
Well, the thing about, first of all, my feeling is that I always thought that Chris Rock was one of the greatest comics of all time, and a guy who I had so much respect for, and now I have like even more respect, and he's just handled everything really beautifully. And most comedians were like all saying, "Oh, everybody's going to slap, and there's going to be all this stuff going on." I actually think the opposite. I don't think I'm the only one who's ever said that. I think now that it's out in the open and we've ridiculed it and saw how ridiculous and how horrible, smacking someone is, hope the audiences learn their lessons and don't. And I think
I'm the same as you. We had this show and I told the rest of this panel the same thing. People will be less likely to do it now because you'd only be mocked and like made fun of and felt utterly embarrassed of your stupidity.
Yeah.
I mean people already talk back to comedians at shows. I mean I've been to shows where the comedian made the person in the front row cry because they picked on him so much, and I was the table beside them, and I laughed and I'm like, just pick me, go ahead, talk about my dick, anything. I'm open, I'm game. And the guy's like, you're too easy. Like, son of a bitch.
Well, again, there's so many different scenarios. If you're just yelling at people and shitting on them when it's not funny, then you're an insecure prick who has no act. That's my feeling. Usually the crowd is, you're supposed to go up there and tell your truth. And if the audience likes it, great. If they don't like it, they'll turn the channel or watch another comedian or whatever. That's really the bottom line. When you see a comedian kissing the ass of the audience, it's almost like, makes you want to puke. As far as heckling is concerned, oftentimes what happens is there's an ego in the crowd. There's like, say a guy's on a date with his girlfriend and he's a very insecure guy and he has a lot of, he doesn't feel secure in who he is as a human. Then he sees his girlfriend sexily laughing at the comedian on stage and thinks, well, I'm going to show her that I'm as funny as this guy. And then they start heckling and they do it out of insecurity. And then if you put them down and really, put them in their place, then they're even angrier because, so what I learned is that one of the greatest comedians of all time, the best live comedian I've ever seen really, is Paula Poundstone. And I worked with her years and years ago in San Francisco at this place called The Other Cafe. And I did a whole week with her, and it was like a lesson in how to deal with hecklers. And what she did was she made them her best friends. And she took the legs out from under them. They wanted to be heckling and mean and whatever. and they didn't know how to handle someone being really nice and making them, friends and funny with them. And then you think of the world, you think like war, if to really make a right down crazy street. You look at a war, and if you just attack somebody and they attack you and you attack them and they attack, it's just going to go on and on forever with attacking and nothing gets accomplished. But if you getting attacked and you take the legs out from under people and just, nullify their attacks, I'm not saying the physical bombs or stuff like that. Usually what happens is, you can probably easily work it out and get past the bullshit, because if you look at war, what is war really? It's just a bunch of egotistical people trying to show that they're, speaking of dicks, that they have, bigger dicks than the other person.
I mean, what's it really good for, as they say?
Absolutely nothing. Say it again.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you know what pissed me off again? I mean, I won't go down the street, but first of all, Chris, you're absolutely right. Chris Rock handled that amazingly.
Right.
Secondly, supposedly he didn't know, so he wasn't. And third, the joke is actually a compliment because Demi Moore was hot in G.I. Jane.
Yeah.
So it's a compliment.
Yeah.
And last, he laughed.
Yeah.
His first reaction was to laugh.
Because it was funny.
Of course it was. And then he looked over and grew his head and said, maybe I need to get up. It's like just asshole all the way around.
You know what made me angry was the audience giving him a standing ovation when he won the award. Like, I would start talking to my neighbor and like not paying attention to him while he was doing his speech.
Right.
Not my literal neighbor, not the person.
Yeah, that'd be odd. Pick up your phone.
I got to make a phone
Just
call.
texting.
Yeah. Texting.
Yeah.
By the way, get back my lawnmower.
Are we good for the barbecue tomorrow?
No, you're a day late.
I wrote a joke about that once. I said, I really want to thank the man upstairs for everything that happened. I go, not God, a guy up in apartment 16. He's a really good
Maintenance guy.
He's a good resource for jokes.
Immediately that San Fran line comes back. Well, you're a day late and $1 short, Eddie.
Well, that's and that was a joke that was a more recent joke that I stuck in the middle of all these jokes with wordplay. Like you're a day late, $1 short. It's like, well, here's the $49 for the concert for tonight's concert. And it's like, you idiot, the concert was last night and the tickets were $50. Oh, he's a day late and $1 short.
Just curious. I mean, since you're on Nerds Talking, why don't you tell us what you're watching these days? What do you do to pass the time? What's on your Netflix queue? What movies do you watch over and over again? Things like that.
My favorite movie of all time is Cinema Paradiso. It's an Italian film. It's about the love of movies. It's number one, and it's very hard to say what your number one is. Number two is a film called Diva from 1981. It's a French movie that has 3 different plots that is so brilliantly crafted into one that you have to see it more than once, because each new time you see it, you learn more and more about what really happened, and it's great. And my third favorite film is the director's cut of Blade Runner. I think those are, it's hard to say because I love movies like crazy. I lied when I was 14 to get a job in a movie theater, so I can lied my age so I can get a job. And I worked in a movie theater. I'm a movie fanatic, so those 3 I would say are the 3. Cinema Paradiso, because it's about film, and I love film so much, and it's about love and all that kind of stuff, and all different kinds of forms of love. And the great, Ennio Morricone writes the music, and then of course this Diva, which has an incredible soundtrack, and this 3 plots, meshing into one. And then of course Blade Runner, which I was blown away by how smart and great that film was. But it's what I'm watching now. I was lucky enough the other night to see the first 2 episodes of Better Call Saul, which is coming into its last season. And I watch a lot of documentaries. Best thing I've seen in a long time is the Beatles film by Peter Jackson, the Let It Be.
That was good
stuff. But I'm kind of bummed that it was over. It was like I got to hang out with the Beatles, and it kind of is sobby, sad, not sad, but like a syrupy thing. But I really was thankful that I would live long enough to be able to see that, because I was such a Beatle fan. And it was pretty amazing.
A little inside baseball here. Your third movie on your list we all called overrated last week. I mean, that's just what we're. That's all right.
No,
But
No,
that's
you
a
said
regular
Runner.
cut.
Too,
It's
Hugh.
not the
I mean,
I
director's
love
cut.
Blade Runner.
Bloyd. Who's Bloyd?
Blade Runner. I said.
Okay.
I love Blade Runner.
Yeah, and
Um,
there's a lot of different versions of the film, and there's the most recent film was the sequel of it, but the
Yes.
original, it was just really smart. It was a script wise, it was a perfect script, and I think Harrison Ford is pretty amazing at what he does. But all the actors are great. Edward James Olmos, I mean, it's all brilliant character actors in this film. Sean Young, it's just really well done.
Don't forget Rutger. Good old
Rutger Hauer. Oh my God.
Yes,
and but then like Being There, the Peter Sellers movie is one of my favorite comedies of all time. It's a more serious comedy, and then there's stuff like Blazing Saddles, and there's so many films, and so Mean Streets, the De Niro's second film his first with Martin Scorsese. It was one of the greatest films, changed my life. Seeing that film.
Who's the funniest? Everybody can answer this one. Who's the funniest? I would say, who's the funniest at making comedies? Like which actor or comedian making movies? Like who do you think is like the top of the bill? Like this guy made the best comedies or the smartest comedies. Who is that guy? Hugh. We'll go with Hugh first because he's really thinking hard and his hair is wild.
Well, no, I was going to. I've always liked. Well, I was just going to say something about comedies. I've always liked comedies that played straight, like Galaxy Quest, for example, played straight. It could have totally been played, as a goof, and it made it so much better playing it straight. I mean, man, Jesus. I mean, I guess Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks.
Yeah, you got Mel, you got Robin, you got Jim Carrey. I mean, who?
Well, you're talking director, or actor?
Those aren't directors. I'm talking about guys that actually star in the movies, like, or even comedians that transition, like what do you call Eddie Murphy? Is he the top of the heap or is he not? Because he made a lot of bombs later in his career.
Yeah, but his great comedies are incredible.
Oh, yes. So true. So true. Hugh, I'll give you a second. We'll jump over to Carlos. Carlos, you're a go-to funny haha guy in movies. I mean, you could even go with somebody like Tom Hanks. He has some comedy.
No, I'd go with Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey is number one on his list.
Carrey is my number one comedic
Jim
actor.
Carrey. All right. Johnny, go ahead.
I'm going to go with Will Ferrell. Will Ferrell done a lot that, I mean, just the Talladega Nights, Step Brothers, even his bad stuff is it still makes me laugh.
I mean, it is hard to top those to your name though. Even old school. Frank the Tank. Don't forget old school. We're streaking. No one's streaking, Frank. Hugh, right back at you. Hugh.
I could go with Will, even though Will Ferrell, when we interviewed him, it was right after he did Anchorman, and
go
I
ahead
said,
"Give us your story about what you told Will Ferrell."
Well, no, I just said, because there were sometimes I was working with interns, so they didn't know anything about anything. So I just jumped in and said, "What is love?" As we're about to do the interview, right after that movie, pretty much a fastball down the middle. Just here you go at 80, and he was like, "What? Never mind. Never mind."
Confusing question.
Well, what's funny is that after you told that story on the podcast, and People Magazine that came out a week or 2 weeks later, he said that exact thing. People come up to him and will go, "Do something funny," and he's like, "Well, what do I do?" Like Johnny said, "Hey, monkey, do a trick. Dance for me." I mean, it's kind of hard to put a guy in a spot like that. Whether he just finished. I mean, to you, he just finished the movie, but he actually finished it maybe 6 months or a year ago.
No, you're right. I mean, you're right.
Yeah. Eddie?
Yeah,
Eddie.
For me, it's Richard Pryor. Every movie that he ever was in, he made it better. The minute he came on the screen, always made me laugh. He was so good, especially like in the Gene Wilder movies, like Silver Streak. He was amazing in that film. And, when he did a lot of concert films too. He's one of the early comedians to do concert films. Robert Klein was the first HBO special, but Pryor, he did a lot of movies and he would play serious characters. But to me, he's the guy.
Yeah, Richard Pryor. Yeah, he had some really good movies. I don't know. Carlos had a good one. I mean, Jim Carrey was like the 90s star. And man, that guy just had movie after movie where you're like, I gotta go see it. No matter if it wasn't to your liking, I gotta go see Jim Carrey's movies.
Cable Guy.
Cable Guy. You know what's funny? Cable Guy is a movie that if you watch now, you'd appreciate it more. But if you were too young to watch it, you were like, "This is horrible. Why isn't he talking out of his butt?"
Right.
You know,
It's funnier every time I see
yeah. And but you watch it now, you're like, "Oh, I get it." No. It's as much better now when you're older and you just understand the dark humor of it. And, you know, I mean, even Ben Stiller has some great, you know,
Yeah.
Oh
movies.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, man, comedies are, I don't know, they're not quite the same nowadays. They're not over the top like they used to be, you know.
Yeah, there are a lot of silly films that were, are fun. And then like that's why the Will Ferrell movies are fun, because they're silly. There was a film by the director Peter Bogdanovich, who died recently, called What's Up, Doc? And it's just slapstick. And it was one of the movies my father and I and my sister went, and we laughed literally so hard that it was like falling off the chair laughing. And it was unexpected because we thought, like a Barbra Streisand movie, Ryan O'Neal was just going to be like a love story, but it wasn't. It was this silly, it was almost like a formulaic slapstick film that was just one gag after another. That was pretty funny.
No, go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say that, there's like a Broadway show called Noises Off. It's very similar, where it's all slapstick. It doesn't matter who the actors are in it in a lot of ways, because it's such a brilliantly written and crafted piece.
And what movie, this goes for everyone, what's the movie you remember that you and Eddie just kind of touched on it, the funniest movie you remember ever seeing in theaters? Like, just roll out of your seat, the tears are rolling so much the screen's blurry. Which movie is it that you can recall? Johnny, you're first. What movie made you blind? Oh wait, hold on. We gotta rephrase that.
Whoa, hey, that's a different lane altogether.
Those are a whole different. Right. Yeah.
Oh.
What movie was it that you literally just was too much to handle comedy wise?
I think it was Dumb and Dumber. I mean, I just remember just from beginning to end, all the jokes, and then, watching it a second and a third time, I'm like, oh, well, I obviously missed this part because I peed my pants and I had to go to the bathroom real quick. I mean, it was that kind of funny.
that shit was hilarious. Carlos, give me the movie that made you laugh so much that you couldn't even.
The same as Johnny. It's Dumb and Dumber, and to this day, it's my favorite comedy. I mean, who the hell sells a dead parrot to a blind kid? And just the thought that our pets' heads are falling off, and then Lloyd is not Lloyd, but Jeff Daniels' character is like, yeah, he was old. Apparently, he thought if parrots get old, their heads pop off. So it's just, yeah, man, that movie is just great.
That movie is, and that scene right there though is just. Hugh.
Well, with Carlos, what he just mentioned, another one came to mind: Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which I thought was hilarious.
I just saw that like
funny movie.
So good.
Bury your dead. I'm
still alive. I'm not dead.
I still remember. Yeah, first time seeing that, and the guy that had the coconuts for the horse, and I'm like, that was just so hilarious. Oh my god! And when he just keeps cutting the dude's limbs off and just keep fighting me, and he's like,
Howard, come back.
Yeah,
you have no legs.
She's like, really? Like, you want me to keep fighting?
That's so good.
Eddie, what movie is it that you recall?
When I was, said I was growing up, I would go to every movie that was playing in town, and there was only a few movie theaters. I was from New York, but I grew up in South Florida in junior high school and high school. So when I was 14, I mean, I go to movies all the time, but we now was able to go for free because I worked in a movie theater. So I would see everything, and I went to go see Blazing Saddles, and I thought it was a serious cowboy movie. I didn't know that it was a comedy. So my friend Pete Widener and I went together. We sat there. And it started serious, if you remember, he's they're doing the railroad tracks and it just started going off the rails. And so not expecting it to be a comedy and being one of the funniest comedies ever, that was a literal fall off the chair. I literally fell on the ground laughing that hard.
And it's still on Netflix. You can catch it still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's on HBO Max as well.
Oh, HBO Max. Okay.
How do you think a movie like Blazing Saddles could be made today?
Be very hard. Very hard.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. There's rape jokes and
there's a lot of
shit
in that movie.
Yeah, let's just stick to
things.
rape jokes.
What did you say?
We'll go
I
as far as
said-
rape
Yeah.
jokes.
Yeah.
We'll see what else.
punching a horse, it's just like, there's like so many things that go on, the language and all that kind of stuff. And Richard Pryor wrote that. He was one of the writers.
Oh, really?
On that film, yeah. He was supposed to be in it, but they thought he was a little too wild at the time because supposedly he was partying like crazy during that time, and that's why Cleavon Little got the part instead of him.
I thought he was great.
Yeah.
Cleavon Little was great.
And the reason I bring it up because I was watching, I just turned on Bridesmaids one day. It was on TBS or something, and I just I remember this movie was hilarious. It literally made me cry tears. And then the scene was on where they're trying all the bridesmaids dresses, but they all got food poisoning.
Oh God!
So they just all start throwing up and shitting everywhere. And the bride runs into the street and shits in the middle of the street, and you're like, "Oh, this movie was hilarious." That's right. Tina Fey writes genius stuff.
Yeah,
but
here's one little secret about Blazing Saddles that I found after the 3,000th time I listened to it. When they're going over to see Lily von Stupp at the place at the big dance hall, both guys, Cleavon Little and Gene Wilder, were walking over. The music playing in the background is the music from the Mel Brooks movie before The Producers. So you hear, blah for Hitler and Germany, but you hear the music, and it's just a nice touch that, because you don't think about the background music always, but they're playing the background music of the Mel Brooks movie from before, which I thought was really clever.
Yeah, I would catch it. It's on HBO Max. I mean, people probably, I would say most people haven't seen that movie.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it is. I think it'll shock people this day for sure. Watching Blazing Saddles, like what? They made this movie? Yeah. Back then, people weren't up in arms about everything. So is what it is. You hold it. We'll be right back after this on Nerds Talking the podcast.
Itch away. If you're itching, itch away. Itch away. May cause itching.
Welcome back to Nerds Talking the podcast. I'm here with Carlos, Johnny, Hugh, Eddie, and I'm Lafayette. And as we were on break, Hugh was anxious, and he's like, "I have questions. I have many of them. I have threefold." And I was like, "Ooh, interesting."
I prepared.
And he prepared. He took notes. He studied Eddie all day long.
No, I already know Eddie.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that's true. Hugh does know Eddie. It's a little inside there. Hugh actually does. How do you guys know each other before we even get to your question?
Emerson a little bit, but he was gone probably before I got there.
Right.
And then I knew a lot of the brothers from the frat there Theta.
Where'd you go to college? Didn't you go to a college like
I went to IU first and BU for a year, where I played ping pong primarily. And then I went to Emerson, where I really, when I look back, I don't try to regret, but when I look back, I should have done 4 at Emerson. It's the best school I went to by far.
Yeah,
not even close.
Pretty great. But we had a mutual friend that's sort of from Hingham, Massachusetts, that connected us.
Oh yeah, you mean Rick?
Rick, yeah.
Yeah, he was one of my best friends, and
yeah,
and actually Joe and I have been best friends all the way to today. I mean, ever since Emerson. So the question,
and that's 40 something years ago.
Yeah,
crazy.
Yeah, 1980.
All right, Hugh, it's your time.
Well, so we were talking about like favorite comedic movies that you fell off the chair for. So I would ask the same question about favorite comedian moments that you just died laughing at, if you can remember them.
Yeah, I remember the funniest moment ever in the world for me was one of the girls we went to college with was Rochelle Joseph.
Oh, Rock.
And Rock's godfather was Danny Thomas.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Danny Thomas and Marlo Thomas, his daughter, and Tony Thomas, the son, ran the St. Jude's. Danny Thomas created St. Jude's, and it's the most amazing hospital, and it takes care of kids and their families, and it's just spectacular. And I've been involved for years with them running charities and all this stuff. So we were invited to the Los Angeles St. Jude's function. Me and my friend Chris Phillips, who you might remember, we were roommates in LA at the time, and lived across the street from each other in New York at the same time, oddly enough. Chris and I were invited by Rochelle to go to this party. When we get there, it is every celebrity that you ever dreamed of that was in LA at the time. I mean, every single celebrity. It was really just, I met Bob Hope. It was ridiculous. Old and young, just incredible actors. And everywhere we looked, it was like being a kid in a actor candy store. Every actor you ever, John Voight was sitting right next to me. It's just like, it was almost ridiculous. And the entertainment in the show were 3 comedians, and one was Danny Thomas, one was Steve Allen, and the closer was Milton Berle. So Milton Berle gets up on stage to do his part, and it was really funny, a lot of funny stuff. People were in a good mood. You're raising money for a good cause. It was every famous person in the world was in the room. And Milton Berle goes, look, I just want to point out one person in the audience that Ernest Borgnine is here, ladies and gentlemen. And Ernest Borgnine, if you don't know who he is, he won an Academy Award Best Actor in a movie, Marty. He was in McHale's Navy. He was the lead guy. He was a brilliant actor. He wasn't a handsome guy. He looked like a bulldog, but he was this brilliant actor, great guy, whatever. So Milton Berle says, ladies and gentlemen, of all the great actors in this room, all the celebrities, all of the superstars, there's one guy in here that I want to point out. And, he's an Academy Award winning actor, the whole thing. Ladies and gentlemen, Ernest Borgnine. And the crowd cheers like they won the Super Bowl. They stand up, standing ovation for like 3 or 4 minutes. And Milton Berle does a double take and looks at the area and goes, "Oh, sorry, ma'am." And it was bedlam. The laughter was ridiculous. It was so perfect. There's no way I can even make the moment as perfect as it was. Well, I told Letterman that story. He did that once in the audience at Letterman. He repeated that thing. It was really the funniest moment I've ever seen in person, and Milton Berle was the one who delivered it. And I mean, the audience was. I was too. We were hook, line, and sinker cheering for Ernest Borgnine. Meanwhile, he's shitting on an ugly lady.
Milton Berle. I mean, I think we all know who that is. Johnny knew who that is, right? Just want to ask Johnny real quick. Johnny knew who Milton Berle is, right?
Hold on, Google's gonna tell me.
Man.
Really?
Johnny,
of course.
He was one of the first
man with the
large
large
television show.
Oh, he was hilarious. What is your moment?
No, I'm going to go last.
Oh, you're gonna go? Okay, Carlos.
I took so long. I'm sorry.
Oh no, don't worry about that. We're just fine. Carlos, what is your comedic moment? You've seen a stand-up comedian, you just laughed your ass off.
I'm gonna have to go recent. I went to the local comedy club here, and Dan Soder was performing.
Oh, he's hilarious.
And man, that guy was so funny. He had me crying. He had me bent over and I took a buddy of mine who had never seen him or never even heard of him. And it was a great time. I love watching stand-up comedy live, but when I saw Dan, it was just hilarious. This guy's just funny.
Great.
Oh, he's I remember going to a comedy club, and I don't know who he was. Came here just watch a show, and he was the headliner, and it was the funniest shit. Johnny, go ahead. Give me a comedian.
I'm gonna go with Kevin Hart, and this was probably about 15 years ago. So he was just starting out before he got big. I think he had done Soul Plane recently, but when he came to Sacramento, it was amazing. Fall out of the seat laughing. Like, I didn't want to go up and get another drink type, because I didn't want to miss anything, or I didn't want to go to the bathroom. I mean, it was just, I didn't want to miss a moment. It was amazing.
Yeah, mine would be Mitch Hedberg.
Oh yeah.
Mitch.
Man, Carlos was with me, and we
yes,
laughed our ass off that night. He was so awkward with his delivery, and his jokes were so left field, but they were hilarious as all hell. And he made fun of somebody that came with us. It was the funniest joke. Carlos can tell the joke. Carlos, what did Mitch do to the individual that came with us?
Well, the person that invited us to go with her, because she had 2 extra tickets. So she called me up and I met Lafayette there, and we went to we sat side stage, but front, because she wanted to sit in the front because Mitch was her favorite comic. And she was wearing a t-shirt that said DKNY. Well, anyway, during the show, Mitch looked over at her and said, DKNY, bitch, buy me a vowel. And everybody roared. And the look on her face was like, it's not just said it. And the rest of the show, she was like, fuck this guy.
She didn't laugh one bit. And it was her favorite comedian. And she was so upset the rest of the show. And it was the funniest shit because we were laughing so hard at that joke. And Mitch, rest in peace. Hugh, go ahead.
Eddie knows where I'm going.
Oh, wait, hold on. So Eddie, do you know?
Not sure.
Okay.
Well, and this is live. Okay, I'm not talking.
We're talking about live. That's
what. Well, no, I know. There's some great moments in recorded that I've seen live. It was Eddie Brill, and it was.
What? I didn't know you would say that.
Yeah, no, it was the Speed Racer bit, which is why I mentioned it earlier. You probably don't even remember the
barely remember it. You told it to me earlier. And I remember the idea of it, but
it was just something where he was talking about. Do you remember the Speed Racer cartoon? You guys, you probably don't.
Of course, yes, Racer X, Speed Racer.
There's something where you ended with the it's just something. And I took somebody to that show. I remember that, but I just remember I was in the front row and I was dying. I was like,
well, that's really nice and flattering. Yeah, there was Speed Racer was a Japanese cartoon, and they would overdub it in English, but using these Japanese actors, and they would talk in a way that was not English. Everything would race, and they talk and they say their sentences all together, and they talk like this, and they'd always end at the end of the
yeah, that's how the show went. Yeah, that's how that show goes.
Come on, Speed, give me a car. I gotta get out of here. And there was no reason to have that at the end. They just didn't know how to do it. It was a very Japanese style thing. So it was, I remember the reason I came up with this because I was in Italy on a school thing with one of my best friends. We went to meet her grandfather. She had never met her grandfather in Italy. And we went off to go see him, and Speed Racer was on the TV, but in Italian. So it was kind of interesting to hear how there wasn't that these guys were doing. And that made me laugh because I just remembered how watching as a kid was important. And all the stories were told in such a sped up, fast, un-English way with the grunt at the end. And it just made me laugh. And until you brought it up earlier tonight, I hadn't even thought about that joke. That was so long ago.
And what's funny is you probably don't remember, but right after I'm dying, lying on the floor, you looked over and you said, "First time seeing comedy, Hugh?"
I don't remember that at all.
Oh, I remember. Right. I don't remember a lot of things, but that I remember for sure.
I have a weird good memory, but some things are gone.
Yeah, I died.
Yeah, you did. Oh, good heavens, good heavens. Eddie, are you still in touch with David Letterman?
Not really. We're in touch with everybody pretty much, like the band, all the guys and gals in the band. We're all friends, and the director, we go have dinner, and the camera folks and the crew, we all talk. We're all still friends, but Dave's kind of like more separate now. He had, when he did his new show, which is on Netflix, pleasure to introduce, or whatever it's called. It was a good show, but none of us from the show were on it. None of the cameras, none of the directors, none of the producers. It was just, I guess after 33 years of doing that thing, he just wanted a clean slate with a new group of people. He was never mean or anything. I just, he treated us really well. He was very loyal to us. We were all, we all love working for him. But as he's moved on, he's, I think he's probably seen only a couple of people a few times.
Well, he lives in Montana, right? I think.
Well, he has houses all over,
That's
many
true.
many places.
He's loaded.
Yeah, he's doing okay. It's apartment.
He's doing okay.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
He
He's
has
doing
apartment
all
in the
right.
city. He has something upstate. He has something in Martha's Vineyard. He has something in the islands, and but he made a little bit of money in his life. It's good.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
CBS took care of him.
Yeah.
Viacom. Yeah, he's good.
All these years in showbiz, can you tell me maybe a handful of people like that you've met that were maybe on your bucket list or local heroes? And is there anyone that you haven't met and you would still like to meet? Maybe like a Bob Newhart or just one of your heroes growing up.
Well, see, that was why I'm lucky. I've got to meet Newhart. I got to meet Rickles and become very close with Don Rickles. Like just thrills. I got to meet Sophia Loren, who was my crush as a little boy. I really am lucky that I got to meet most of the famous people. The people I didn't meet that I wish I would have met, I already said Clemente. I never met him in person. John Lennon, I would have loved to have met in person, and Johnny Carson. And of course, you can't meet those people, but there are certain actors like Robert Mitchum I always thought was great. I always wanted to meet him. But I guess it's hard to say nowadays. If there's what's his name from oh God, I can't think of his name, the Ozark. I would love to meet him and his friends, that group of guys.
Jason Bateman
and the Canadian guy. My brain is fried. All the guys in his group of friends, I think those are people I've never met from the era of nowadays. And I think they're really brilliantly funny, and not only brilliantly great actors, but producers and creators and good people and all that. But yeah, as far as, I've been very lucky to meet, like I met James Brown and had an incredible experience with him. I met Joan Rivers, had an incredible experience with her, and she helped me with my very first Letterman performance. I met her once before, but then I met her. I was flying home. She happened to be on the same flight, and I was about to do Letterman for the first time, and she helped me with my set and she helped me, make it a better, stronger set. So I've really been very lucky. I guess if I don't use the word blessed often, I'm not a blessed kind of a person, but I think that I am blessed that I've gotten to meet a lot of these incredible people in my life. Just the fact that I worked with David Letterman was pretty incredibly special for me. Like every once in a while, in 17 years, I never took it for granted. I'd look down at the desk and there'd be David, and I go, that's fucking David Letterman. Like every once in a while I go, I had an experience with Paul McCartney, which was the greatest, experience of my life in show business. I got to meet him, and I got to come up with an idea for the segment that he was doing, and also be on the marquee with him and talk with him and make him laugh and talk to him about music. And, it was pretty incredible, special night, so it's been amazing. I'm blessed, as I would maybe not say.
Carlos, do you have anything for Eddie?
I do. What a surprise!
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Hugh. It's your show.
No, I got
it
something.
Is. It is.
Eddie, have you ever given advice to a comedian that was so bad that you actually told them to probably not do comedy?
No.
And then what would be the top number one advice you'd give to an up and coming comedian that probably is not doing so well?
No, I think that anyone who takes the chance, or who goes on stage and gives it a chance, deserves all the respect in the world, because it's so hard to do, and it's so many factors, and you really have to be born with it. It's not something that you can buy at the store, or you're either funny or you're not, and it's so important that you do that. But if a comedian is just really bad at it, I still want them to. They get my respect for giving it a try or putting the work in that comes with it. But the best advice is the advice that I got. It's a real, many comedians really look out for other comedians. You might hear these stories, but in reality, my life has been littered with comedians who, like Sam Kinison, and I can name drop, 10 people that would, blow your mind, that helped me when I was a young comedian. Along the way. And the best advice is stage time. You just got to get on stage, and you got to write all the time. It's a job you're going to, and because the more you do it, the better you get at it. So you just can't help it. Like I've been doing it in a row for 38 years almost. And after 37 years, I'm pretty good at it. But a year later, I will be so much better than I was the year before. It just happens that way because you put the work in and you get on stage all the time.
Yeah, like repetition, right?
Yeah.
You need that constant repetition of it's funny, you did what you said too, is either you're born funny or not. There's a lot of buddies I know that they think they're the funny guy in the group, and we all know they're not. And we're just like, just play along with it.
Yeah.
You're hilarious, buddy. You're hilarious. Go ahead, take your balls again. That was fun. Like that's the only joke they got. Like, Hugh, you're anxious. You're sitting there, you're like, I'm sweating. I gotta say something. Go ahead, Hugh. Go for it.
Well, no, I was just going to ask if there have been, when we talked about live, definitely. I like smart comedy, and I think you're a guy who does smart comedy. It's not, hitting your head comedy like some guys do. And so I think of there were guys I put down, and I'm just kind of curious what you think of some of these guys. Some of them are obviously huge, like Ricky Gervais. I think is very.
I think he's brilliant and he's funny, and he, you just watch that he doesn't care. He does. It's no bullshit. It's just telling his truth and really just calling it out on people who usually get their asses kissed. It's really great.
Like a guy like Jim Jeffries is another guy that comes to mind.
One of the greatest comics I've ever seen ever, and smartest guys I've ever seen. And his show on Comedy Central, although I love John Oliver and all those kind of shows, Jeffries had the best of all those shows. He was the best.
This show was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was smart, and it wasn't taking sides.
Yeah. Another good is John Mulaney.
Yeah, brilliant comedian.
That dude is his special on Netflix. He kind of he copies like Sesame Street. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh my God, it's supposed to be a kid show, but it's all just adult humor, and it's the funniest shit. Hugh, who else is on your list?
Louis Black.
Yeah, another great comedian.
Well, he's straightforward though. He's like, Louis Black is, you're gonna either love or hate him. There's no middle ground.
Right. He's smart. One thing, my favorite comedians, most of them are really smart and good people, and really, really just, that's the thing. The smartest people I know are mostly comedians, and Louis Black, I would put him in that category. Guys like Gervais and all these people, they're really intelligent people.
Yeah.
In order to, out of it in such a way that they walk their own line that they've created, and so yeah, all those guys. Mulaney is a brilliant, I think the best young stand-up out there. And there's also Mark Norman, who's really great, and Joe List is really great. And I just lost his name. He's a New York guy, and he's just so. I can picture him. I hate when I do that, but
Jerry Seinfeld. He's a New York guy, right? So
yeah, he's from Long Island. He's from I forgot the city in Long Island, but he's always been a top-notch writer, and him and Larry David and Larry Charles, writing all the Seinfeld episodes and coming up with stuff. It's a great group of incredibly hilarious people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Hugh, is your list over? I need more.
No, I even like I liked a number of the Kings of Comedies, which are kind of
Bernie Mac,
totally different direction. But
Hewley,
Cedric the Entertainer, I thought
the Entertainer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Damon Wayans, I think, is one of the greatest underrated comics of all time. He's the closest to Richard Pryor that I've ever seen, and I could watch him for hours. He would come to the Comedy Store, just sit down and start playing, and it was a brilliant and nice man who also helped me as well. But yeah, Bernie Mac, he was very sad about, he died way too young. He was not only the greatest guy in the world, but he was one of the most original, funny guys out there.
And how about Hugh? I didn't hear you mention not one on your list, not one female comedian.
Geez,
that's right. I need one female comedian from everyone.
Paula Poundstone, the best comic I ever seen of all of them.
Paula Poundstone, hilarious. True.
Lafayette, you have a favorite comedian, don't you?
No, I don't. She's horrible.
Yeah, sure you do. She does a joke about the.
She can go away.
There's a story here, Eddie. There's a story here.
Angela
Yeah.
Johnson. She's
I never
not
met her.
funny. Yeah, you don't need to. Whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I told her she wasn't funny on Twitter, and we went back and forth like 30 times.
Oh,
Yeah, and then she just wouldn't drop it. I kept telling her, hey, I saw your last special. Tell me when there's a joke in there. And she didn't appreciate it. And, That's what it is. You can't. I don't know. It's hard. I think it is hard for men sometimes to relate to female comedians because male comedians, like it's like sports, right? We get it. That's funny. We relate to it. And then when you're watching female comedians, sometimes you're like, you're funny, but I get the joke,
right.
but it doesn't resonate with me as a male so much.
There's an interesting thing about our society, how you look back in the beginning of time or the first man or all that kind of stuff, and the Bible and all these religious books, and women are always secondary and sometimes tertiary people in the stories. They're never really the leads. Adam and Eve. If it wasn't for Adam, you wouldn't have Eve. God's a man, his son's a man. It's just this kind of thing that we've grown up with, and it makes people think, treat women poorly. Same thing with people of color or slavery or all that kind of stuff that was in all the early religious books and been carried through the centuries about people of color and all this kind of stuff. And it's interesting because, I've been approached about female comics all the time. And, since I started my comedy club back in 1984, I always had a lot of female comics on, not because they're female, but because they're really funny. So I don't look at comics as male and female so much. I look at them, that they actually make me laugh and I can relate to their stories, but I see them not trying to, again, pander to me, like seeing all comics, men and women, be authentic and be their, their tell their truths. And there are so many of them. Caroline Ray is a brilliant comedian one of the best live comics I've ever seen. And Wendy Liebman is incredible. And, it's just on and on there, and there's, you mentioned Tina Fey, and, she might not have been a stand-up, but she's a brilliant, comedy person, actor, writer. So I've learned to look at life and realize that, yes, we were born into a society that puts women down, puts down people of color, and comes from a very shallow, not loving, good way. And once I realized that, my mother was the funniest person in my family. My niece is now the funniest person in my family because my mother passed the mantle on to her. But the people are very funny. It's just that as a man, sometimes our ego, gets in the way of us being able to appreciate a lot of things, or our training as young men. Like, you see a magazine and they show a naked girl, but you don't see her nipples. And so your whole life is like, I've got to see nipples because they've kept the nipples from me. And it has nothing really to do with who the person is or whatever. It's just that psychological beatdown that we've had our whole lives about what's good and what's beautiful and what's sexy and what's fun. If it makes us laugh, it's funny. Like someone will say, well, I saw this comedian, they didn't make me laugh. Well, if they make somebody laugh, they're fun. That comedian's funny. And so I don't look at them as men and women. But people try to pin that on.
Yeah, Hugh, add one to your list. We're waiting.
Well, no, I just was going to say that I've seen little bits on TikTok with female comedians, real, not people.
The actual comedians.
Yeah. And I couldn't tell you right off but there were a whole bunch that were, and I realize it's the best of, maybe there are 8 seconds of a really great bit, but there were definitely some that were hilarious. And I can't, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you who that is, but absolutely.
Johnny, you got one for me?
Female comedian?
Yes.
Sarah Silverman.
She's hilarious.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Whitney Cummings. I mean,
I was about to say that
too.
She's funny
Whitney's
too.
hilarious and getting funnier and better and better and better because she puts the work in and doesn't take herself seriously. She's great.
Yeah.
Carlos has one.
Sorry.
He's
Nikki
like
Glacier. I like Nikki Glacier.
Yeah.
Oh, she's funny.
Nikki's hilarious.
There's Ali Wong.
Schlesinger.
Ali Wong is great. Yeah.
That's right. Ali Wong. Oh, Schlesinger. Yeah. I think her first name is
Eliza, I think.
Eliza,
went
right?
to Emerson. She was in Emerson.
Oh, really?
Another Emerson.
Yeah.
Another
So
Emerson.
so is
popped up.
Jennifer Coolidge, and so is
Oh,
Andrew
yeah.
Martin.
What, Jennifer Coolidge. Wow.
They're all Emerson people. Jennifer Coolidge, David Cross, Bill Burr, Anthony Clark.
I didn't know Bill Burr. Bill
yeah.
Burr.
Bill Burr went to Emerson. Jay Leno, Henry Winkler, like I said, David Cross. So many comedians: Dennis Leary, Mario Cantone, Stephen Wright.
Yep.
The head writer of the of Fridays was Lauren Dabrowski. Dennis's girlfriend in college, and it's like there's so many great Emerson. We had a good we put together a comedy program, and it was wildly successful.
Gina Gershon went there for a minute.
She did, yeah. After I had graduated, but I got to meet her.
Someone I know saw her at a party, and that was
anybody help anything before we close out this episode of Nerds Talking the Podcast? Johnny's like, nah, I got nothing. I was gonna say Joy Coy.
You know what's weird is that when I said that line way earlier about nerds, I forgot that was the name of the show. And then you said, "Oh, how convenient!" I'm thinking, what do they mean? And then it's like,
he just hit you right now. These guys are nerds.
Oh,
what
wait,
am I doing here?
I got something for you, Lafayette.
Okay.
You talked about your best 3 movies. Give me your best for these guys superhero movie.
The best 3 superhero movies, or the
no, our best
superhero
3
movie?
Best 3 from Eddie.
That's
so you guys can weigh in.
Best 3 superhero movies. Wow.
Oh, by the way, wait, before you go, by the way, you said Superman is the strongest. I threw that question out to a buddy who's a big anime guy, and he said, the Flash. The Flash.
What?
That's what he said.
Your buddy's dumb.
Is your buddy, is he in a wheelchair?
Oh, he said the Flash is always handicapped in a movie in some way.
Exactly.
In some way.
Buddy.
He's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, he's in a wheelchair.
Yes.
He's handicapped in a movie. He'd probably be still pretty fast at moving his arms. But the best superhero movies are probably the Avenger movies, to be honest. Endgame and both of them probably in the top 3. And then I'd probably throw in one extra. It'd probably be the first Iron Man, because it was like, whoa, like this is incredible. Like they made a B-list character, or even a C-list character, to the most badass superhero movie you've ever seen when it came out.
What do you think of the Spider-Mans? Because there's so many. There's the animated one. There's the most recent one, which I thought was pretty good. And
the most recent was probably the best so far, to be honest. I mean, how can you top place putting all 3 Spider-Man in a movie, right? You can't top it. It's like
it was pretty great.
It's like the Flash movie coming out. It has Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck playing Batman. It's like, what? Like, how are you gonna top that? So it's that's why Endgame is so good, because these guys see themselves in the past, or they're going back to fight again in the New York scenario because they have to, and when Tony meets his dad, blah blah blah. It's just such a good, there's too many good superhero movies. It's like, what are the worst superhero movies? The 3 worst super, like that's a better route, but Sony makes it sucks.
And Lafayette loved the Batman. He just loved it.
Oh, no, I did not. Shut your mouth. The Batman is now on HBO Max, so if you want to take a nap, put it on.
I saw that came there.
Did you see
those are movies I want to see in theaters,
Yeah. Well, did you see the Batman?
I haven't seen it, no.
Okay. Well, you're right, though. That is a theater. That is a theater going movie. Yeah, it is. It still probably is in theaters, to be honest. Yeah. So you can definitely catch it still. All right. Well, there we go. Is that it, Hugh? You good? You good, Hugh?
No, that was it. Was that your list, Eddie? The same.
Yeah.
End game.
Yeah. Those are pretty damn good. Yeah.
Yeah, those are hard to top, man. Those are Johnny. Yours?
I mean,
top 3 superhero movies.
All the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Are amazing.
What's number 1 on your list? Thor number 2, and then Captain Marvel.
Ooh, Captain Marvel was probably the best one.
And then Eternals.
Just because they had a blockbuster in there, and I love blockbuster.
Oh yeah, that's right. They did have a blockbuster in it.
No, I'm gonna go Iron Man, the Avengers, and then Civil War, Captain America: Civil War.
Such a good one. Yeah. Also basically the Avengers movie. I mean,
basically
yeah.
an Avengers movie, and then the last
Yes.
Spider-Man. I mean,
yeah.
just-
Yeah.
Carlos, what is your top three?
Man of Steel,
Oh,
Of course, yes.
Ooh.
Avengers Endgame. One of the reasons that Avengers Endgame, well, besides the movie itself, is in all the Avengers movies, you're waiting for Captain America to say "Avengers Assemble," and he never does until that key moment when Doctor Strange brings everybody back through the portals. And that just brings a happy tear to my eye every time I see it.
When you
But
see
that's the
everybody
nerd
though
in
come
you,
through the
right?
portals, man.
I told you,
Everybody
Eddie.
does.
I
Howard
told
the
you.
Duck even
When you
came
see
through
everyone
the
come through
portal.
the
They know
portals, like,
everything.
what? He's back. Oh,
Yeah.
they're back. Oh, you're just so
Mhm.
excited. Hugh, give us your top three superhero
I
movies.
still got one more, man.
That-
You slow down.
Oh, you do have one more. Oh, okay.
I'm gonna go with The Dark Knight.
Ah, yes. Excellent movie. Excellent movie. Hugh, give us yours that don't have Christopher Reeve. Go.
Oh, that's definitely not up there. In game, the most recent Spider-Man, and I'll go with Dark Knight.
Okay, Eddie, top three. Give us your top
Yeah,
three.
it's pretty much it. There's, I mean, the Marvel movies, I'm a fan of all of them, and the End Game, the Spider-Man movie I thought was really spectacular. That's why I was wondering what you thought about them. And yeah, there's very few of those kind of movies that I don't like, because I just like the whole idea behind them. To me, even the Batmans, whatever, most of the Batman movies, they didn't bum me out. I enjoyed them because I like getting lost in that kind of sauce.
Yeah,
Yeah.
super corny. Those like '90s Batman movies. But
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And especially the TV show in
Oh, the TV show,
1967, I was 8 years old or so. And I went to the theater down the street from us because the Batman movie was coming out. And I was standing, and before the movie started, they opened the door and Batman and Robin came running down the aisle and onto the stage, and like, "Hey kids, this is Batman and Robin." And I think that was really them, because it sounded like them and it looked like them. And thought in my older age maybe it wasn't, but I'm pretty sure it was New York. We're in
that's
New
cool
York,
though.
so-
That's pretty cool.
and it was really cool for me because I loved the TV show. And yeah, I actually a friend of mine, I gifted him the Batman series on DVD just recently. It was a really smart, funny show with great actors and campy and silly, and
it knew it was silly. Yeah.
on purpose.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, Johnny loves. Is it Batman and Robin the movie? One of his.
yeah, that was that
One of his top.
the original movie that came. The original movie was
The
so
original
silly.
one where he's running around with the bomb for like
That was
10 minutes.
awesome.
Yeah. Yes.
And the
Yeah,
shark
in
repellent.
college we
Oh,
in
shark
college we
repellent.
wrote I'm sorry, but in college we wrote this Batman meets the Penguin, and they had found cocaine. That Penguin was selling cocaine, and and every pun was, and there was every pun, and it's still, weirdly enough, I heard it about a month ago. My friend and I, we pulled it out of the dust and listened to it, and it held up today to that, because we were just such good fans, and we had the album. That there was an album that had all the music from the original Batman, and all the sound effects, and all the little pow, bam, and the interstitial music was in it. So we made it sound like a real episode, and we just put our voices in the other one. We were Robin. And so yeah,
I will say, as a child watching it, it's a little misleading. And if you use any of their fight moves in a real fight, you're getting your ass whooped. So that's the only criticism I have for it, is like none of their punches worked, and people didn't wait for me to like take a punch and then
One
give
punch at a time, like your turn, my
Yeah.
turn. Like,
Yeah.
like
Oh, right.
movies are. Yeah, movie fights are great.
Did
The
you
way
yell
it
out
takes
"Bam" when you'd punch?
I think
Bam,
they
pow.
did. They
They
did. when
they
hit
did when
my
it just
face.
natural effects on your face.
The weird thing is instead of just killing Batman and Robin, the bad guys would set up this like trap, that would like, hey, when the light comes through the door and burns the rope that you're tied to,
Right.
and then they'll set off the dominoes that'll go around, and it's like, just, well, why don't you just shoot them? And
Yeah, it was super elaborate, right? Everything was, and it was explained to them as well.
yeah.
Right.
Like, we're out of here, Batman. Before we go, though, that fish is gonna go over there, and then this tire is gonna go here. You're like, and he's like, "Good heavens, Robin, what do we do?"
yeah.
Yeah, it's-
Penguin, why don't you just shoot us?
Yeah, exactly.
Nice idea, boy wonder.
We're gonna have to have Eddie back just for movie talk because we are big movie guys and we review movies to death on this show. And
Good.
So there you go. That's our show. Eddie, anything to plug before we head out?
Let's see. I have a bunch of my own podcasts. I did 11 episodes with all incredible comedians, and it's called The Break with Eddie Brill. And it has, Dave Attell and Jim Gaffigan and Caroline Ray and Susie Essman and a whole bunch of great comedians, 11 of those. And then I did a video series called OG NYC. It was from the Organic Grill. That's what we used, OG. And I interviewed Artie Lang and Colin Quinn and a bunch of rock and roll guys. And, so those are two things that exist that you're out there. And I'm on YouTube, all over the place on YouTube, bits, Letterman appearances, all kinds of different things. And yeah, I'm working up with my son, who's a comedian in this. We just booked the gig together in a place that when he was a little kid, he helped build the theater and built the stage, and he gets to perform on it, and I get to work with him on it. It's very exciting. Instagram at Eddie Comic.
Mm-hmm.
You can find me on Twitter, Eddie_Brill.
There you go.
I'm on Facebook, but I'm full up with people. But if you follow me, you could read my stories. I put a bunch of stories on.
And that is BRILL. And right. Eddie likes it. EDDIE.
You have a website too, Eddie?
It's brand new, so it's just starting to do a thing. I have a great new guy doing it. It's eddiebrill.com, but there's not much on it yet.
Okay.
Brand new.
The final question is, what is the dumbest name for a comedy club you ever saw? Where you're like, oh my God, you named it like this? Like,
oh, I wish Only Joking was
Only Joking.
Yeah, I would think. Or Rags to Riches was a club.
Oh, that's a bad one.
That was a bad one. And the guy who ran it was kind of a douche.
How about, did you ever perform at a place like the Funny Bone or something like that?
Oh yeah, Funny Bone.
Yeah, I figured that. Yeah.
Giggles and they're all great, all great names.
Oh man, so lame but funny. All right, well there you go. That's our show. Thanks for coming, Eddie. We appreciate it.
I hope I had a lot of fun. It was fun, for me talking movies and a bunch of nerds hanging out together. It's fun.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely have you back on without prying into your life. It'll just be us talking movies and TV and all the nerd shit we love. There you go. So for Hugh,
see ya.
For Carlos,
bye-bye.
For Johnny,
take care.
For Eddie,
hey.
And I'm Lafayette. Thanks for tuning in to Nerds Talking the podcast. We'll see you next time.